New levels, new devils. This is something that a mentor used to say a lot to me, that I had quite some time ago now. New levels, new devils. With every new level that you're hitting, basically there's a new final boss, Every single time that you hit a new level, there's going to be new challenges that you're needing to actually overcome to get past that level, get to the next level. And he always used to say this. I already believed it, but this time around, building this offer that I'm currently doing, and my current goal is to build it to 50K months, it's proving true and true and true time and time again, because of course I'm getting to new levels, newer levels than ever before, and seeing new devils. And understanding this isn't just a nice phrase or a nice quote. It's really essential to actually build your business well when you understand that with every new level there's a new devil, with every new level there's a new final boss, and you need to know when it's time to start preparing to fight this new final boss, basically. Because it's very easy, and I've seen many people do this, I've done it myself, it's very easy to get to a new level or get to, your current level and be doing pretty well, be happy with where you're at, but not realize that it's kind of time to go to that new level, the next level above, and it's time to start to do things differently. And if you're not careful, you'll stay at the same level or the current level that you're at for way too long without changing things to get to a new place, and things will stagnate. If you're not careful, you'll stay there so long that things just don't stagnate, but they'll actually start to go backwards because of the law of diminishing returns. So inside my program, we break these down into two different phases, and you're either in one phase or the other at all times within your business. Phase number one is the build phase. In this phase, you're not on a really great trajectory now. Wherever you are, you might be making 50K months, right? But you're not on a great trajectory. Things are not flowing just yet. And your job in the build phase is to find and diagnose the problems and the bottlenecks within your business that's stopping it from actually being able to grow right now. Identify those, unblock those, and pretty much build the right things, figure out the things and build the right things so that you can get into the phase after the build phase. The other phase, the phase after the build phase that we're trying to get into, is the growth phase. So in the growth phase, the building's been done, right? The building that was necessary in the build phase, the diagnosing of problems and the unblocking of bottlenecks from the build phase has been done. And now you're in a growth phase. In a growth phase, it's really important that you don't fuck with it, right? Because when you're in a growth phase, you're now experiencing growth. The trajectory of your business is now actually in a really good place. Things are flowing. And especially if you're anything like me, in a growth phase, your biggest risk is actually feeling like you need to do more, feeling like you need to build more, feeling like you should be solving problems, feeling like you should be unblocking bottlenecks, and actually just sabotaging the growth of your business. So there's the build and the growth phase. In the build phase, your risk is not identifying that you're actually in a build phase, right? Not identifying that you're in a build phase and kind of continuing to do the same thing again and again and again, hoping things change even though they're not, and eventually stagnating completely, and eventually after that actually going backwards. The risk when you're in a growth phase is sabotaging yourself by feeling like you need to keep doing different things, by getting shiny object syndrome, going and doing other things, building other things, and actually knocking yourself out of the growth phase. Because in a growth phase, we need to identify we're in a growth phase and then keep doing the same things that got us in there in the first place and pretty much milk it for everything that it's got until the growth phase is dry. And then naturally, you're going to find yourself back at a build phase. This is when you're in a new level. This is when you've now got a new devil. Your revenue is going to be higher and everything else. And that's when you find yourself back in the build phase and you need to start building again. right? So first of all, just understanding those terms is really important, because now you can hopefully start to identify that for yourself and kind of lock yourself into one of those two categories and understand what you need to do. Do you need to build, or do you need to actually keep doing what you're doing and continue the growth that you're currently on? Now, I have fucked up in both of these categories during my time as a coach, my many, many years. And I thought I'd share with you where I was when I was in the build phase and where I fucked up, when I was in a growth phase and where I fucked up, because this is one of the biggest things that holds people back, right? There's so many things within these two phases, of course, that it could be, but it's actually so often just not being able to identify which phase you're in that is one of the biggest things that actually holds people back. So where I fucked up in the build phase, this was about 4 years ago now, maybe 5 to 4 years ago, with my online fitness business. My online fitness business was doing around 11,000 to 13,000 pounds a month, depending on the month. It was kind of hovering around or within that kind of bracket. And it was doing pretty well, right? It was doing pretty well. The problem was I was only doing the pure basics, and the basics work, but only to a point, right? I was only doing the pure basics because I was learning from, I was inside a business mastermind, and I was learning from people that were only telling me to do the pure basics, right? So I was posting every day. I was hoping people came through. I was following people. I was messaging people. I was trying to book people onto calls. And of course, that got me that far. The problem was that I now identify, and now when I'm helping coaches in the exact same position, I now know where to take them from here. The problem was, once I'd kind of finished the growth of those inputs, I found myself in a build phase. Things started to slow, and now looking back, it's quite obvious why. I was fishing from this small pond. I had got to 11 to 13K months, but the pond wasn't replenishing. I had nothing going on that was actually, increasing the amount of fish in that pond, if we stick with the analogy. If we don't stick with the analogy, I had nothing that was actually driving more traffic. So with every sale that I made, I was reducing the amount of demand I could actually take from, and I wasn't replacing it, right? So to be honest, this should have been identified way before and rectified before it was too late. But eventually I got into a stagnation phase, because I kept being told, keep doing what you're doing, like trust the process, blah, 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 blah. I was way too patient for my own good. And patience is a double-edged sword. Like, it's helpful, but it can also get you in trouble. So I got to a point of stagnation, and eventually I got to a point of actually going backwards, right? And it wasn't just me. There was a lot of people in my circle, a lot of people, that I knew from this mastermind. The mastermind was great, by the way. It was just, this is one little thing. But I knew from this mastermind that was experiencing the exact same thing. And now, 4 to 5 years later, I've seen so many coaches that just get stuck at that level 1 spot, just get stuck with level 1 activities, and they never know when to move. They never know how to identify they're in a build phase and move on from it. If you're wondering, by the way, what I should have done, first of all, I should have built some marketing assets around me. So it wasn't just me doing the thing. I should have done some long form content. I should have created maybe a VSL or some sort of indoctrination funnel to be able to indoctrinate people into my unique ideas. Because the unique ideas were working, it's just they were never like solidified anywhere. And then I should have had some sort of traffic flow at that point. I had the money for it. The messaging was working and everything else. I should have had some sort of traffic flow coming through. That indoctrination funnel probably should have been running ads to it. So with everything that was already working, I could have just got more people into my world. So that's where I fucked up on the build phase, because 4 or 5 years ago, didn't know these, I wasn't able to identify these two things. This is exactly why I'm doing this video. So if you're in a similar position, you can identify them now. And then the growth phase. The growth phase is a funny one, because I think most coaches, myself definitely included, we are more likely to overbuild and kind of like fuck up the growth phase than like we're more likely to just fuck ourselves up basically when things are going well. And this was definitely me. So last year was my most successful year in business by far. And it was great. And probably about 6 months in, the whole year was just going very, very, very well. You know, it felt uncomfortable because of how good it was, like how well it was going, because I was so used to having to solve problems. I was so used to having to unblock blockers that were in the way of the business growing. I was so used to having to sit down and figure out what's going on that when I didn't have to, it almost felt wrong. It almost felt like I was being lazy, even though the business was growing really, really well. Now, I could feel that sensation in me for quite some time of like, is it really going this well? And even the quote, the internal dialogue of, can it really be this easy? Because I had been so used to it and I felt so at home in this feeling of struggle and so at home of this feeling of like trying to figure out problems all the time. So, you know, it was going well. My mentor even told me, I was asking him questions and stuff, and he just said, you have to ride the wave. It's going well. My biggest advice to you is to go and get a hobby and stop looking at the business so much because it's going well and you're going to fuck it up. Anyway, month 7 comes around. Around month 7 comes around of the year. What do? I start fucking it up. Now, this was nothing crazy, right? But it was on such a good trajectory. And what did I do? I felt like I needed to build something else out. So I built something else out around the business. I kind of like changed the infrastructure of the business a little bit. Not because it needed to, but because my hands just wanted to build something. And, you know, I was just so used to building things, so used to fixing problems that I could barely help myself. I went out of the rhythm that I was on because I was on a really good rhythm and things were just working very, very well. This pushed me out of the rhythm that I was on. It made me build something that kind of changed the infrastructure of the business. And after that, now that the infrastructure was changed, now that the infrastructure changed my rhythm, the rhythm, when I say that, I mean like what I'm doing on a weekly and a monthly basis. And now that the rhythm could never be the same and I was already thrown off of it, for probably the 3 months after that, 7, 8, 9, 10, yeah, probably the 3 months after that, nothing went backwards, but I had slowed down the growth of the business very noticeably. It was still moving forwards, just at a much slower rate. And I kind of had to rectify all of these problems and get back onto that growth trajectory afterwards because I just did something pointless basically, and I'd fucked it up. So this, if you are in a growth phase, if things are going well, if the trajectory is nice, if you're hitting your growth rate that you're wanting to hit week on week, month on month, you don't need to change a thing. You need to document what you're doing, stick to what you're doing. At most, if you want to do anything, potentially do more of the things that are working, increase the volume of the things that are already working, but you do not want to stop what's working and go and do something else. You do not want to go and build something else completely new. You don't want to start to fight battles that you do not need to be fighting right now. You do need to stay on the flow and stay on the rhythm of that flow and let it take you to the next level because you've beaten the final boss on that level and you're floating up. At all times, you will get to the point where things slow and you get to a build phase again. You're never going to get to a growth phase and it just never stops, right? Or we'll all be millionaires and billionaires by now. That doesn't happen. There's always points where things start to break, the market starts to respond differently. You know, the inputs that you were doing aren't working so much anymore. There's so many things that can change and get you into a build phase again. Stay on the growth phase till you're there. For me right now, I'm back into a build phase. So I enjoyed a very, very long growth phase where things were growing really well and really fast. Now I'm at the point where I can noticeably see growth just start to slow down again. And, you know, things aren't going backwards, things aren't terrible. And, you know, I've been in this game long enough to understand nothing is linear in this game. There are big growth spurts, there's sometimes exponential growth. And then there are, you know, times where things slow down a little bit, and that's where you get into the build again. I've identified the problems, and I'm having a lot of fun fixing them. I'm having a lot of fun solving the problems that are occurring, learning as I go, and also learning for my clients. So right now I've identified I'm back in a build phase, and I'm doing what needs to be done. And this is the big thing I want you to understand, other than just the build and the growth phase, the risks of both, and what you need, how you identify both, and what you need to do within each one of these. Another thing I want you to get out of this video is the understanding that business isn't linear. You know, I hope it's not too windy. Let me turn around. Let me turn around for you so my back is to the wind. Yeah, business isn't linear. You know, like I said, I'm in a build phase right now. Noticeably, growth has slowed, right? Which is always going to happen. And luckily, I've been able to identify what's changed, and I have plans in place to rectify it. Thing with business is it's a lot slower than our brains think. So you kind of do the things that you believe are going to rectify it, and then you have to let it play out without thinking about it too much, without overthinking it, and then you kind of see what happens. But I've got the things in place to rectify it, and it's only a matter of time till I'm back in the growth phase. Now, I've been doing online coaching for, I think, 9 years now. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that version of me that I was just talking about earlier would be responding very differently. Because back then, I had this belief, without knowing it, it wasn't a conscious belief, but I had this belief that business is linear, which means that 1 month needs to be better than the next month and the next month. If I have months where I go backwards versus the month before, I'd start shitting myself. I remember this time. I was living in Valencia in Spain, beautiful place, with one of my best friends, living together in Valencia. I was making 10 or 12K months at this time, or probably mostly 10s. And I have this vision, it's such a funny vision. I had made 8K that month, living in the most beautiful place ever, with my friend, having loads of fun, but I'd made 8K, which is great anyway, right, in like the grand scheme of things. I remember standing in the sea, looking out, thinking, oh my God, my life is crumbling. I remember thinking everything's falling apart because I had a month that was like probably 2K down from the month before, even though I'd banked 8K that month, and it was pretty much all profit. I had no team, no nothing else. You know, what that version of me needed to understand is business is not linear. 9 years later, going up, going down, going all around, I understand that business is not linear. It doesn't ever grow month on month on month on month on month on month forever. There's periods of quietness, there's lulls, and in these periods is often where you grow the most. In these periods is where you're able to implement the things that actually allow the business to exponentially grow again. And then there's nothing stopping you from having exponential growth after that. There's nothing stopping, you know, again, the growth, not only does the growth not have to be linear upwards at all times, let me try and put this right. Not only does the growth sometimes go backwards, and that's okay, but at the same time, business is not linear. The growth can also exponentially grow. Nothing physically stops it from doubling or tripling the next month, you know, physically. These things can happen. So understanding business is a long game. There are periods of growth, there are periods of building, and enjoy both of them. They are all there for your, you know, business maturity, your entrepreneurial maturity, and they're essential. So I hope this video helped.